$1.31 and €1.17. LBC weather: rain in the south will spread further north overnight. Some heavy bursts across Wales with snow on northern hills. Gales in the west, a low of 1 degree. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Holly Jones.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, as expected, Iran did retaliate. Overnight, tens of missiles sent towards military bases inside Iraq. Some hitting those bases, most from what I could see, landing in the desert outside. Mercifully, nobody was killed or injured, and that, I think, was a good opportunity, perhaps for President Trump when he responded, to perhaps not sound too warlike. And he did respond about an hour and a half ago in a press conference. He stood there with Mike Pence, the vice president, standing next to him, surrounded by senior figures from the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army. Let's listen to a little piece of what Donald Trump had to say.
As long as I'm president of the United States, Iran will never be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. I'm pleased to inform you the American people should be extremely grateful and happy. No Americans were harmed in last night's attack by the Iranian regime. Iran appears to be standing down, which is a good thing for all parties concerned and a very good thing for the world. No American or Iraqi lives were lost because of the precautions taken, the dispersal of forces, and an early warning system that worked very well. We are now the #1 producer of oil and natural gas anywhere in the world. We are independent, and we do not need Middle East oil. The American military has been completely rebuilt under my administration at a cost of $2.5 trillion. U.S. armed forces are stronger than ever before. Our missiles are big, powerful, accurate, lethal, and fast. Under construction are many hypersonic missiles. The fact that we have this great military and equipment, however, does not mean we have to use it.
That was important.
We do not want to use it. American strength, both military and economic, is the best deterrent.
So that was Donald Trump. The opening line sounded very tough, didn't it? As long as I'm president, Iran will never have a nuclear weapon. It sounded very tough, but actually that's been American policy for the last successive series of presidents. Actually, my view was he was calm, statesmanlike. The speech was relatively short and to the point. Interestingly, he called on NATO to do more in the Middle East. And that was a very, very interesting moment because part of the Trump narrative is that NATO, if it's to be an effective organisation, can't just be America in terms of what they pay for the military, in terms of what they do. And I think he feels that in the military war against ISIS, and yes, sure, the RAF were involved and other Europeans had some role, but basically he feels it was the American part of NATO that was doing the heavy lifting. So that, I think, is something that will lead to a lot of debate in European capitals over the next few months. But it was calm, it was statesmanlike. Mercifully, nobody was killed or wounded by those Iranian missile strikes. And for now, it draws a line under this little conflict. It does not mean that the problems have gone away for the long term. Is this a victory for Trump? Well, he's kind of trying to claim that it is. And if taking out Iran's senior military brain, and he's gone, he's out, finished, dead, and if in response, there's a little bit of collateral damage to a couple of US bases in Iraq, probably this is a pretty good moment for the US president. And I hope and think and believe, short term at least, it's a good moment for all of us. And I say that because World War III has, over the last couple of days, been the most searched for, Googled for phrase on the internet. And, talk of, is this going to lead to war? So let me ask you, has President Trump done enough to alleviate your fears about a world war? And if you think, no, this is President Trump, he's just one tweet away from escalating this, call 0345 6060 973. Or maybe you agree with me that actually, yes, he was statesmanlike and that for now, there's no prospect of this going further, in which case text to 84850 and tell me, maybe you do think that this is far, far from over. How long do you think it'll be before problems rear their head again? Please tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC. And of course, you can watch us on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube and comment there too. Sam is my first caller tonight from Stoke-on-Trent. Sam, what did you make of President Trump today?
I was glad he didn't fall for it. He was statesmanlike, and it's nice to speak to you again, Nigel. But I'm sorry that I'm not reassured, because there's people in the American administration that have wanted war with Iran. They've been salivating, and I've got 2 points basically. I'm going to say John Bolton, Pompeo. One is we put that regime in there. That when I found that out, I couldn't believe it. We actually got rid of the Shah.
Well, hang on a second.
America got rid of the Shah anyway. It was a CIA-backed coup because he wanted a better price for his oil. With us backing it, we got rid of the Shah. In the 70s.
No, I don't buy that at all. Sam, I'm sorry, I really don't buy it. I don't know. I don't buy your first point, Sam, because in 1979, this was the Islamic fundamentalist revolution, wasn't it? The Shah was actually quite a friend of the West.
Exactly, I'm saying that we got rid of the Shah because he wanted a better price for his oil. It's well known.
I don't buy that.
I've looked into it, and that's my first point. It's true if you look into it. The second one is the US, I'm afraid, uses sanctions like a schoolyard bully. And my evidence for this is Nord Stream 2. He's put sanctions on Germany for getting gas from Russia because he wouldn't buy US gas. That's insane. And that's who we're back. I don't support. Okay. I'm not a Jeremy Corbyn supporter, but I want our troops to get out of the Middle East. Look at Libya. Look at Iraq. What are our service people doing in Iraq? That war was based on a complete lie.
Sam, I don't disagree with you.
What are our service people doing there?
I don't disagree with you. We've made some huge mistakes in the last 2 decades in the Middle East and elsewhere. I agree with that completely. The point about Russian gas that Trump is making, and again, you heard in that clip I played you, he said, we in America are no longer dependent upon countries like Iran. We don't need their oil. All right, so America has made itself self-sufficient. And, the point that he makes is this, that everyone talks about him colluding with Russia. Actually, Germany is totally dependent upon Russia. That, I think, is the point he's making. Why are they
putting sanctions on, though? Why are they sanctioning Germany for getting gas from another European country? You've only got to look under the surface a little bit. You see that America uses the reserve currency status like a weapon. Anyone who does anything they don't like,
do you view Putin's Russia as a European country?
Well, it's part of the continent, but why has the US got the right to sanction Germany because they want to get gas from Russia? That is not right and not fair, and that's what the US does.
Right. So you don't feel the world's any safer tonight than it was this time yesterday?
No, I'm pleased, but I'm saying that the guy who sits in the pretty White House isn't really in charge. The deep state and the military-industrial complex.
All right, well,
make billions off war and oil. Look at the price of oil. Look at the price of oil now.
Sam, President Eisenhower did talk about the military-industrial complex, so you're not alone. Thank you. Nara on Facebook says, Trump pulled this one off, didn't he? Iranian regime stands down with dignity. Trump gets extra kudos points for his election. Good job. Well done. He would say, great job. Well done. Richard says, do you think Trump allowed Iran a target, a more or less empty base to save face? Richard, we will never know what goes on behind the scenes. But the thought that tens of missiles were fired at these sites and that absolutely nobody was injured does of itself seem extraordinary, does it not? Trump's voice and delivery are very different when he's following a script. He sounded bored and uncommitted, I get on Twitter. No, I don't think he did sound bored. I don't agree with that at all. Let's go to Southampton and speak to Paul. Paul, good evening.
Hello, Nigel.
Good evening. So, were you very worried this could escalate quickly? This conflict between America and Iran?
Absolutely not. There's not one country in that whole arena that can project a war outside its own borders. So, I just think all these doomsdayers going on about World War III just never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Well, I agree with that, Paul, and yet a lot of people were thinking it and Googling it and being very concerned about it.
Yeah, but then you have a lot of Ramonas saying that, stay in our little huts where we are in Europe and everything's going to be fine. It's just ridiculous, America did the right thing getting rid of that murdering SOB. He had to go. And anybody like that, people need to read books and learn from history. You can't keep placating these psychopaths. You've got Hitler, Himmler, you've got Mussolini.
Paul, and I was saying this on Sunday, my first show back here, that we're pursuing a policy of appeasement against a fanatical regime. It's never ever going to...
It doesn't work.
And I was really pleased to see the former CIGS Lord Dannett come out and say very much the same thing yesterday. I agree with that, Paul, and yet Boris Johnson still seems to think that might be the right policy.
Well, no, he needs to get off the fence. I think he's being a little bit too guarded. I know we've got the thing with the EU, but the EU, they've never really been our allies. America has always been our ally, apart from Suez. Who lent us the missiles in the Falklands War?
Yes, Suez was tricky. And we've had our ups and... look, David, we have had our ups and downs with America. Profound disagreement, of course, with Harold Wilson, who refused to send troops to Vietnam, thank goodness. So we're not always going to agree on every single action, but we're still close allies.
You have to back your closest ally. And, like he says, they've got the biggest guns. So at the end of the day, and plus we know Iran's trying to get rid of Israel. So
they wanted it obliterated. David, finally, just a quick thought, David, from you. Finally, here was President Trump calling on NATO to do more. Is he right to ask NATO to get more involved?
Absolutely. Look at the last tanker that got kidnapped in the Straits of Hormuz. That was a Swedish ship. Why has it got a British flag on it? Why do we get involved? The Swedes should have been there. It's one of their ships.
David?
It's ridiculous. They're just getting everything for cheap in Europe. They don't want to pay for anything. No. They want us and America to pay for it.
Yeah, well, I think that's coming to an end, and I think that will become a bigger issue in Trump's re-election campaign. David, thank you very much indeed. On YouTube, I can't believe how cool Trump is being right now, but Mel says Trump is not as smart as I'd hoped. Now I'm getting worried. He's a loose cannon. Mel, I don't think anyone would disagree that on Twitter he surprises people on a regular basis. But I think the important thing to bear in mind, this is not a warmongering president. It never has been and it never will be. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:15 and time for the news headlines with Holly Jones.
US President Donald Trump claims Iran appears to be standing down following a missile attack on 2 coalition bases in Iraq last night. Ukraine International Airlines says the probability pilot error caused a crash in Iran, killing everyone on board, is minimal given the crew's experience. The man convicted of murdering Helen McCourt on Merseyside more than 30 years ago is set to be released from prison, despite never revealing where her body is. LBC weather: rain in the south will spread further north overnight, some heavy bursts across Wales, a low of 1 degree.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's slow on the M25 anti-clockwise because the lorry's broken down between junction 27 for the M11 and junction 26 for Waltham Abbey. On the M25 clockwise, it's very slow after a van broke down earlier between junction 29 for Romford and junction 30 for Lakeside. Peckham High Street stays closed in both directions because of an accident near the Aylsham Centre, so there are queues both ways. There are also queues in the A12 northbound from the Lee interchange to the George Green Tunnel in Wanstead after an accident earlier on. On the trains, London Overground have no service between Sydenham and West Croydon because of a signal failure at Brockley. And South Western Railway, they have delays of up to 15 minutes between Waterloo and Vauxhall after a train broke down earlier on.
This is LBC.
The birthday cake didn't arrive in time. The centrepieces never made it to the wedding. And by the time the brass band got to their concert, everyone had left. Breakdowns are rubbish, especially when you run a business. So when we make vans at Volkswagen, we make them as reliable as possible, which is why we've just won Most Reliable Van Maker at the Fleet News FN50 Awards. Volkswagen Commercial Vehicles. Working with you. Visit Fleet News for full award criteria.
LBC.
Yakult is created using mystical arts. Firstly, summon the spirits with tranquil Then one must thrice bang the spiritual gong. Lastly, bring forth the ancient all-seeing cow. Should it give a magical moo, Yakult will be delivered to you.
Don't be ridiculous. Yakult was made by a Japanese scientist with unique bacteria scientifically proven to reach the gut alive. Yakult, a little bottle of science, not magic.
At Ring, we've reinvented the doorbell. So no matter where you are, or what time of day, you can watch over your home and the things you care about. Ring Video Doorbell streams HD video and two-way talk straight to your phone, so you can speak to whoever's at your door from anywhere.
Delivery.
Oh, great. Could you leave it with my neighbour, please?
Sure, no problem.
And it's so simple, you can install it yourself in minutes. See, hear and speak to whoever's at your door from wherever you are with Ring Video Doorbell. Available at ring.com and selected retailers.
At Argos, our sale is on and so much more. Go online to shop our range of amazing deals, including tech, toys and home. Plus, with up to half price on selected homewares and furniture, there is no better time to style up your home. Visit our website to shop our full range of deals. With Argos, you're good to go. Selected lines, conditions apply, subject to availability.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
Don't miss out. Oak Furnitureland's big winter sale is full of surprises and huge savings. Online and in-store now. Be surprised.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
In the last few days, a lot of people have been becoming genuinely worried that what was going on between Iran and the USA would lead to a quick war. Many thinking maybe the UK would be dragged in. Tonight, after Trump's statement, I think it's reasonable to say that many of those fears will have been alleviated. But that doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. Because let's be honest, we've had problems in how to deal with Iran ever since 1979, ever since they took those hostages in Tehran, ever since they took hostages, of course, here in London too, and endlessly we've had problems with Iran. Now, what was supposed to solve it all was something called the Jcpoa, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, and this was a means for other world powers to get Iran to promise that they would limit their nuclear activities, and in return, inspectors would go and have a look. And for doing all of this, billions of, literally, not just lifting of sanctions, billions of cash dollars were sent to this Iranian regime. The question is, has it limited their nuclear ambitions? Why does a country that's full of oil need nuclear power anyway? It doesn't. It's always been clear to me they had ambitions to get nuclear weapons, and that's, to me, always been a pretty scary thing. And ever since 2015 and this deal was done, and the EU think it's wonderful, and Obama thought it was wonderful, well, Trump takes the view that I take, which is that actually freeing up Iran and giving it more cash just means it now funds, through its proxies, be it in the Yemen, or the Lebanon, or Syria, or wherever else it may be, it funds its other proxy terrorist organisations. So I'm against this deal. I don't think it's worked at any level at all. But this does pose an interesting problem for Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Let's hear Donald Trump today on the Iran nuclear deal.
The very defective Jcpoa expires shortly anyway and gives Iran a clear and quick path to nuclear breakout. Iran must abandon its nuclear ambitions and end its support for terrorism. The time has come for the United Kingdom, Germany, France, Russia, and China to recognize this reality. They must now break away from the remnants of the Iran deal, or Jcpoa.
So he's urging NATO to do more, but he's very specifically name-calling the leading players in the European Union in terms of their approach towards Iran. Let's hear Prime Minister Boris Johnson today at the dispatch box giving us his view of the nuclear deal.
It is our view that the Jcpoa remains the best way of preventing nuclear proliferation in Iran, the best way of encouraging the Iranians not to develop a nuclear weapon. And we think that after this crisis has abated, which of course we sincerely hope it will, that way forward will remain. It is a shell that is currently being voided, but it remains a shell into which we can put substance again.
There we go. So the official position of the UK government is they support the Jcpoa being reactivated. They support, which means loosening of sanctions and thinking that Iran are the good guys. Because after all, you know, even if they're not so good, if you're just nice to them, they might be nice back to you. It's called appeasement. We've used it against bad regimes in history. It's never served us well. I really do feel very, very strongly about this. David is a new caller to the show from Beckenham. David, has the problem, the likelihood of conflict, gone away, at least for the moment?
Hi, Nigel.
Good evening.
It seems that it might have done. I just wonder if the story would be the same if there'd been casualties from those missile strikes.
In a way, the fact there weren't made it much easier, didn't it, for Trump to be more statesmanlike this evening?
Yes, it's exactly what I'm thinking.
Do you see? I mean, I've just played a clip of Trump on the Iran nuclear deal and a clip of Johnson on the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, what do you think our approach to Iran should be?
I think Trump was exactly right to do what he did. I think I think that they need to be shown a very strong hand. I think Trump's going to have to just sort of sit back and wait to see what happens because he's threatened. Is it 12 more targets? Do we assume that his first one has failed because he hasn't managed to have any casualties? I don't quite know what you think.
I don't know. I mean, it almost feels, doesn't it, that a line's been drawn under this for now.
Yeah, well, hopefully.
I think for now, David, I feel for now it has, but I don't think the threat or the problem of this Iranian regime has gone away at all. David, thank you for your call. Chris says to me, I'd love to believe that this is all calming down, but it all depends. It all depends on what Iran does next. Let's all hope World War III can be avoided. Chris, there is not going to be World War III. Iran, militarily, is not strong enough to take on the USA, let alone if it was the USA with their NATO allies doing something. That would mean us too, of course. I don't want us to get involved in a war over there. The Iranian regime doesn't want us to get involved in a war over there. What would worry me longer term is if they did develop nuclear capability. On Twitter, I get, Donny did appear statesmanlike today. First time for everything. Okay. On Twitter, I don't think World War III was ever a possibility. Iran can't defeat the USA. I think Iran needs to learn from what happened with North Korea. Let's go to Chris in Colchester. Good evening, Chris.
Hi there, Nigel. Hope you're well.
I am well. So, were you, this time yesterday, very worried?
I was never worried. I don't know where all this... Well, I've got a rough idea where all the scaremongering came from, but to think that there was ever going to be a global conflict off the back of what happened, I think was a nonsense, to be honest.
Chris, I agree with you, but tell me, why did so many people begin to think it was possible and start searching the internet looking for World War III?
It's because you had people like the Shadow Foreign Secretary coming on breakfast shows, being very quick to condemn Trump, other people jumping on the same bandwagon, and it was all very much an anti-Trump sentiment when they don't really know the full ins and outs of what's been going on in the Middle East. They were quick to condemn Trump by saying that he's not allowed to take out a military general or someone high-ranking up in a government position or anything along these lines. But these same people have lost sight of the fact that Iran have been conducting state-sponsored assassinations for years in Lebanon. But these same people never batted an eyelid when this happened.
Well, can you imagine, Chris? Had Obama taken out General Soleimani, do you think there'd be uproar then?
There wouldn't have been, because that would have been Obama. A completely different story.
No, and you know, of course, it was Obama that took out bin Laden. I can actually imagine if it had been Trump that took out bin Laden, we get the same voices of criticism suggesting that he broke an international law, wouldn't we?
Absolutely. And to be honest, I've been listening to LBC for the last couple of days, and I've not had the opportunity to ring in. But the way that people have been talking about Soleimani, like he's some kind of hero because he fought against ISIS and bits and pieces like this, these people need not be under any illusion that they weren't fighting ISIS for the benefit of the West. They were fighting it for their own gains and their own benefit, because they need to assert their influence in the territories that ISIS were taking. It wasn't to do us a favour. They were working for themselves.
Whatever their reasons were, it was pretty helpful, I think. Chris, I tell you what, you have basically said that Emily Thornberry is one of the people that has stirred this up. Let's listen to Emily Thornberry a couple of days ago.
The president is reckless and hasn't thought through, I don't think, what it is that he's doing. But it seems to me quite clear that the Iranians are going to counterattack, and it means that our interests, our people, our forces are, of course, under threat.
There you go, Chris. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. Was she trying to make us all scared?
She is a disgrace.
Is
that
she?
is all she was doing. She is a disgrace for what she says, because she has no idea. We're always under threat. If we let their behaviour go unchecked, we will constantly be under threat, because there will be growing influence of the terrorist organisations that Iran sponsor that no one seems to want to confront. But the day Trump confronts them, there's a problem. What I say, my hat is off to Donald Trump for being one of the only world leaders to stand up to these people, because that's what they need.
Chris, I do
not believe for 1 second that Iran would ever do anything that would instigate a prolonged conflict with the USA, because they know they would be removed from the Middle East in the blink of an eye.
Chris, I'm in your camp. Thank you very much indeed. Adrian in Manchester thinks much the same way. He says people hate the fact that Trump is a great president with backbone. He'll be remembered as one of America's greatest. Well, we'll see. He hasn't finished yet. Ahmed from Solihull says, I think Iran will block shipping oil movements through the Straits of Hormuz, which is controlled by Iran and through which a lot of world oil exports pass. I think if that happens, it would be in response to Trump's latest sanctions, and that oil prices would soar. Ahmed, I tell you something very interesting, and I say this, as a former commodity trader. Had something like this conflict occurred 10 years ago, the oil price would have spiked to over $100 a barrel. As it is, the oil price is up a little bit, down a little bit, no really huge, massive change. And that is because the world is becoming less reliant on the Middle East for oil. It's because countries like the USA are becoming, in energy terms, self-sufficient. And I've always taken the strategic view that I don't want us to be reliant on Saudi Arabia, on Iran, or any other country in the Middle East. It needs thinking about. This is the Nigel Farage Show, here on LBC at 6:30. Time for the news with Holly Jones.
Donald Trump has called on Britain and European allies to abandon the Iran nuclear deal following attacks on 2 air bases in Iraq housing US troops. The president's also announced further sanctions on Iran and says the country appears to be standing down. Last night's attack took place in retaliation for the US killing General Qasem Soleimani. 2 engineers working in London have been named as being among the 3 British people killed in a plane crash in Iran. The aircraft came down just minutes after takeoff for Kiev, killing everyone on board. Local officials have blamed an engine fire. The man jailed for murdering Helen McCourt on Merseyside is set to be released from prison, despite never revealing where her body is. The parole board says it's satisfied 63-year-old Ian Sims no longer needs to be behind bars. LBC weather, rain in the south will spread further north overnight. Some heavy bursts across Wales, a low of 1 degree.
Back for its 3rd year.
And the winner is
the Global Awards 2020. LBC and its sister stations are joining together to bring you an unforgettable awards night.
Show your appreciation for LBC's Mr. Steve Allen.
The Global Awards 2020 with very.co.uk, rewarding the very best from the world of music, news and entertainment. But who will win this time? Vote now Download the Global Player app or have your say at lbc.co.uk. The Global Awards 2020.
With very.co.uk. Get more out of every day.
LBC.
At Argos, our sale is on and so much more. Go online to shop our range of amazing deals, including tech, toys and home. Plus, with up to half price on selected homewares and furniture, there is no better time to style up your home. Visit our website to shop our full range of deals. With Argos, you're good to go. Selected lines, conditions apply, subject to availability.
London. We have a problem. Our air is toxic, and driving polluting vehicles is the main cause. The air that I breathe, that my friends breathe, that my mum and dad breathe, and that you breathe, can cause lifelong diseases. But there are solutions, like making our transport greener and creating better spaces to walk and cycle.
These are just some of the ways the Mayor of London and TfL are helping to improve air quality across the capital. Find out how you can make a difference too. Search Let London Breathe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
A credit limit of up to £1,500. What do you have to do to get it? Simple. Get online and check if you're eligible for an Ocean credit card in minutes without affecting your credit score. For your Ocean credit card, visit ocean.co.uk now and get all that from Ocean. Intelligent Lending Limited is a credit broker. Capital One, the exclusive lender. Representative 39.9% APR variable. Borrow and spend responsibly.
When most people think of 3D, they think of movies, games, or TV. At Darwood and Tanner, we think of it as a process of determining the shape and volume of your jawline in three-dimensional space, allowing us to create the perfect dental implant solution for you. To be amazed at the transformational effect of Darwood and Tanner dental implants, visit darwoodandtanner.co.uk. Darwood and Tanner, obsessive about dental implant technology.
The real reason Sleeping Beauty fell asleep was because it was taking so long for the palace to sell, and the handsome prince needed the proceeds to buy their new home with no time to dwell.
I know who can help. Property Rescue. I'll contact them straight away.
So he spoke to their friendly team who took care of every detail. They bought the palace direct with no legal fees to pay. Fast forward to living happily ever after. Visit propertyrescue.co.uk. Property Rescue. Fast forward to sold.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
We're talking Trump. We're talking this press conference. We're asking you, do you feel that any fears you might have had about a big outbreak of war have been alleviated today? But before we get back to that, Richard on Facebook says to me, would love to hear your interjections in the EU president's speech as well. So, what's the story? The story is that Ursula von der Leyen, now you all know who she is, don't you? Now, I bet a lot of you are saying, who on earth is she? Well, let me tell you, she is the most powerful woman amongst the 500 million people that live within the European Union. Very shortly, of course, it won't be quite as many as 500 million. She's the new boss of the European Commission. She is the person that has replaced Jean-Claude Juncker, and she was coming with Michel Barnier today to London for talks with Boris Johnson. Overnight, the Prime Minister's office had briefed out that we are looking for a simple free trade agreement that will not mean regulatory alignment, and we want it done before the end of the year. He's reiterating what he said during the general election, very much to my joy. But what did Commission President von der Leyen have to say in her press conference following her meetings in Number 10?
That our partnership cannot and will not be the same as before.
Well, that's
because
fairly
with
obvious.
every choice comes a consequence. With every decision comes a trade-off. Without the free movement of people, you cannot have the free movement of capital, goods and services.
Well, that simply isn't true.
Without a level playing field on environment, labour, taxation and state aid, you cannot have the highest quality access to the world's largest
that
single
sounds very
market.
threatening, doesn't it?
The more divergence there is, the more distant the partnership will be. And without an extension of the transition period beyond 2020, You cannot expect to agree on every single aspect
Oh, how
of our new
positive.
partnership.
What a good start to
we
the
will
year.
have to prioritize.
Well, there you go. So we've got to have continued free movement of people. That's obvious, because you can't do trade without free movement of people. Really? Really? There has to be a level playing field, or we can't have proper access to the European single market. Really? I mean, these guys just did a deal with Canada. All right? Canada doesn't have free movement of people with the European Union. Canada doesn't have to pay a contribution. Canada doesn't have to accept that the whole of its economy is governed by European Union laws and a level playing field. And this is the problem, isn't it? You know, she's basically looking to negotiate what Barnier has been working on for 3.5 years, which is a form of associate membership, where we accept all the rules but have no say in making them. Boris, so far, is saying all the right things, although I do remember back in 2016, Theresa May, at the beginning, was saying the right things and then did the wrong ones. But you can see what the battle lines are going to be over the course of this next year. You know, they're going to be pretty obstructive to the idea that there's not going to be regulatory alignment. And clearly what you heard from her, it's impossible, it can't be done before the end of 2020. You know, and you'll hear civil servants saying, a trade deal takes at least 7 years or 10 years to negotiate. Well, I don't know, perhaps it's in your interests, if you're being paid to do it, for it to last forever. But look, Brexit's coming on the 31st. I've got no doubt about that. It will be a decisive moment. We will have left. There'll be no way back. But do not think there aren't some pretty big battles to come pretty shortly after the end of this month. Back to Trump. Disappointed that Boris Johnson believes in a useless Iran deal, says Anne. Anne, I'm with you, but others believed, and Obama led the charge, and the EU went with it, and actually Russia and China too thought it was a good idea back in 2015, that this was a way of containing Iran. But this principle of containment, this principle of appeasement, I just don't think it works. Alistair from Tooting is a new caller to LBC. Welcome. Good evening, Alistair.
Good evening to you.
So, does the world feel a bit safer tonight?
It doesn't feel any safer, but it doesn't feel the opposite either. I think while I agree with you that Trump was very statesmanlike in his speech, I think you have to take his words with a pinch of salt. If you're going to take his Rocket Man tweets with a pinch of salt, then you have to kind of take his more reserved words with a pinch of salt as well. I think when it comes to Iran, they are a terrorist regime, and I don't think words of violence are going to encourage them any more or less than words of appeasement. They're going to do what they're going to do.
Well, it depends how fearful they are, Alistair, doesn't it? I mean, isn't deterrence actually quite a valuable thing? Isn't the threat of a big, strong America there perhaps one that might make them think again?
I think possibly when you're dealing with a sort of governmental regime like Iran, as opposed to a terrorist group like ISIS or Boko Haram, who tend to kind of lash out and do violence for the sake of violence. I think Iran's a lot more tactical and plans the long game. So potentially, if I think about the US-Iran relations over the past few decades, I think if you were to chart it with America being firmer or America being less firm, I don't think that would neatly correlate with how violent or non-violent Iran has been.
It's Alistair, not a precise science. Thank you. Now, breaking news is that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have said in a statement they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent. Well, stay with us here on LBC. We'll get reaction to that news, more insight as we can. That's just broken on the wires. As you know, for the last 6 weeks or so, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have been out in Western Canada. The last few months of last year were pretty miserable for them, having gone out very much in public. They decided to effectively go to war with the press. A lot of criticism heaping down upon them. I have to say, I've thought for some time now that they would spend most of their time outside the United Kingdom. So that's breaking tonight. Duke and Duchess of Sussex have said they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family. OK, let's get back to Donald Trump, and we will get more on that story, of course, as it develops. I'm not sure, Michael says, that those who sneer at Trump really understand his style. I suspect that he knows his audience. He does know his audience at all times. And look, Trump is not a warmonger. Angel makes the point on Facebook. When they shot down a US drone, he showed restraint. When they attacked the Saudi oil fields, remember that? He showed restraint. When they harassed British ships, he showed restraint. We've all been showing restraint to Iran over and over and over and being nice to them with this Iran nuclear deal, which Boris somehow still believes in. Don't ask me why. I'm going to Dulwich to speak to Robert. Good evening, Robert.
Hi, Nigel. Thank you for coming back to the airways at LBC and bringing back some sanity to the programme.
Well, that's sweet of you. I have to say that I was away for a long time, and I really did miss it.
I know, it's an interesting place, isn't it? You get extremes. You have people in the last couple of days on LBC presenters who are talking about World War III, and they didn't think Soleimani was such a bad guy, or they referred to him as a little bit naughty and stuff like this. And you suddenly realise that we live amongst these people. That I have had the privilege of, I say privilege, inverted commas, of living in a dictatorial regime, a brutal dictatorship in the Caribbean.
Where was that?
And many of the people, it was in Haiti.
Okay, yeah.
Long time, under Baby Doc, the son of Papa Doc. And what people don't understand is, if your anger at Trump is so great that you're willing to forgive people like this bloke who was blown up the other day, you really have to start looking into yourself and introspecting and looking into your heart, because when you effectively are defending someone like that, as Jeremy Corbyn effectively did today, because
I know, it was mad. It was mad. It was absolutely mad. I don't get it. Robert, I'm going to have to love you and leave you, because I've got Robert Jobson on the line, royal editor at the Evening Standard. Robert, good evening.
Good evening, Nigel.
Does this announcement from the Duke and Duchess of Sussex surprise you? Did you think it was coming?
I must admit, I was quoted the other day saying I think something was going to happen in terms of them spending more time in North America, which went out online. So I think all this, after the changes with the Duke of York, him effectively being retired, I thought something might happen, I must be honest. I mean, they spent an awful long time away, but the question now is, how is it going to happen and who's going to pay for it, I think, really. I mean, if you're going to be able to do royal duties but base yourself elsewhere, are you going to become self-funding, and if that is the case, who's going to pay for the security? There are a lot of questions that are unanswered.
And it kind of sort of half indicated that they went to the Vancouver Island, didn't they, for 6 weeks?
That's right, yeah.
And all, sort of one or two little press reports, how much they did love living there and how much Archie enjoyed it, and you kind of got the impression that maybe they're moving to Canada. I don't know. Could she?
Well, certainly that West Coast is an area that's very close to LA and where Mum lives, and it's what the life she's used to. But at the end of the day, what it means to Prince Harry is a completely different matter. I mean, he's been a full-time member of the royal family all his life, and whether you can operate in that way, I just don't know. It's sort of unheard of, really.
Well, if they were to move there, it would be almost a form of self-imposed exile, wouldn't it?
In a way, yes. I mean, would they be able to carry on doing engagements in that part of the world? They're saying their commitment to continue towards the Queen, and they're going to carry on working for the Queen. But I'm not sure that people will necessarily accept this sort of style. I mean, they are popular, especially amongst the younger generations, but it's a question of money at the end of the day, Nigel. I mean, the taxpayers just spent over £2.5 million renovating their house, and in London, in Windsor. So I don't think people are necessarily going to be saying, "Great, we'll have a house there and a house in Canada and have the life of Riley." I don't see how it's going to work.
Yes, I mean, presumably if they were to spend just a little bit of time in this country and do the odd engagement and be seen to cost the taxpayer a lot of money for not much in return, that would not help them. But they did, Robert, I mean, before they went off to Canada, the couple of press appearances that I saw from both of them, I mean, they both did look incredibly miserable, didn't they?
They did, and I was on that trip to Africa, and although they were both doing things that, you know, they saw as very important for, but not only their foundation themselves, but also for the country, they were doing their bit. But at the end of the day, they didn't seem happy. And in the documentary with Tom Bradbury, they were very clear that they were unhappy. But
yes.
Does it make it any better that, you know, do they think they're going to be any less public interest in them if they're on another part of the world? I really don't see how that would happen.
No, I get that. Robert, thank you very much indeed. Robert Jobson there, Royal Editor at the Evening Standard, making a very powerful point that, you know, it's all well and good them saying they're going to become financially independent. Who's paying for their security? What about the £2.5 million that's just been spent on doing up their house in the UK? These are very practical points that Robert, as a Royal Observer, has raised. Difficult to see how they can sort of have their cake and eat it. Difficult to see how you can live in Canada and pop back and do the odd royal engagement. Doesn't quite make sense to me. My own guess, is they're pretty much going to be leaving this country. That's what I think is going to happen. This is the Nigel Farage Show. It's 48 minutes past 6 and time for the news with Holly Jones.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have released a statement saying they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent. The US President has confirmed no Americans were killed in missile attacks by Iran last night and says the country appears to be standing down. The Ukrainian President has ordered a criminal investigation into a plane crash in Iran, which came down minutes after takeoff on its way to Kiev. LBC weather: rain in the south will spread further north overnight. Some heavy bursts across Wales, a low of 1 degree.
LBC Traffic, I'm Dave Goff. There are queues on the M25 clockwise from junction 23 for the A1M to junction 25 for Enfield after an accident earlier on, but all the lanes have just reopened there. Peckham High Street stays closed in both directions because of an accident near the Aylsham Centre, so there are queues. It's very slow on the A12 going out of town from the Lee interchange to the George Green Tunnel in Wanstead after an accident earlier on. On the trains, London Overground have no service between Sydenham and West Croydon because of a signal failure. TfL Railway have severe delays to and from Paddington because of overhead line problems, and South Western Railway, they have delays of around half an hour between Waterloo and Vauxhall after a train broke down earlier on.
Coming up at 7 on LBC, Ian Dale.
It's the first cross question of the new year tonight with Andrew Mitchell, Lord Glassman, Harry Lambert from the New Statesman and former Conservative advisor Salma Shah.
Ian Dale on LBC.
Hello? Sarah, Witchton Wolf. I understand a tenant was complaining about a problem at one of your properties. So we paid them a visit and, you won't be hearing from them again. What? Direct Line dealt with the problem, Sarah. You bought landlord emergency with your policy, and they sent someone around in 4 hours. Perfect.
Electrician, plumber, glazier, locksmith emergency response within 4 hours. Can your landlord insurance do that? Search Direct Line, Landlord Emergency. Optional add-on. Excludes Scottish Highlands and Islands. Extreme weather conditions may extend response time. Residential properties only. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
London, we have a problem. Our air is toxic, and driving polluting vehicles is the main cause. The air that I breathe, that my friends breathe, that my mum and dad breathe, and that you breathe, can cause lifelong diseases. But there are solutions, like making our transport greener and creating better spaces to walk and cycle.
These are just some of the ways the Mayor of London and TfL are helping to improve air quality across the capital. Find out how you can make a difference too. Search Let London Breathe. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
At the Bank of Santander, they've created Stan, a smart bot that can predict the future of remortgaging.
I read Stan. Will my mortgage rate go up?
1955 was the last time Newcastle won the cup.
No, try not to mumble.
Playing, let's get ready to rumble.
Oh. Meanwhile, at Santander, they can't predict your future, but they'll help secure it with great mortgage rates fixed for up to 10 years. See what's possible at Santander.
Early repayment charges apply. Lending subject to status and criteria. Your home may be repossessed if you do not keep up repayments on your mortgage.
You're listening to the sound of a Halifax customer who used to worry she wasn't saving enough, but is now saving the change every time she runs out of milk. Switch on Save the Change, and when you use your Halifax Visa debit card, we'll round up to the nearest pound. and put the difference into your chosen Halifax savings accounts.
Hello, Sunny speaking.
Hi, Sonny. It's Alex. Is Steve free?
Steve, I have Alex on the line.
Put him through. Hi, Alex. Hello? Hello?
Fed up of a difficult-to-use phone system? Hi is an intuitive touchscreen business phone with removable tablet, centralised contacts and instant video to anyone. Stop saying
hello
and start saying
hi.
Visit hihi.co.uk for more information.
The deadline for filing your tax return is creeping closer, so it's time to do something about it. Make life easier with EY Tax Chat. Download the app today and connect with EY professionals to file your tax return with minimal effort and maximum confidence. There's no paper documents or complicated software. EY tax professionals prepare and submit your return from just £329. Search or download EY Tax Chat now to beat the 31st of January deadline.
The Nigel Farage Show on LBC.
Well, the breaking news is that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have said in a statement they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family. They also say they're planning to share their time between the UK and North America and will work to become financially independent. OK. Now, they've issued an official statement. It says, after many months of reflection and internal discussions, we have chosen to make a transition this year in starting to carve up a progressive new role within this institution. You they get that word in somewhere. We intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent while continuing to fully support Her Majesty the Queen. It is with your encouragement, particularly over the last few years, that we feel prepared to make this adjustment. We plan to balance our time between the United Kingdom and North America, continuing to honour our duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth and our patronages. This geographic balance will enable us to raise our son with an appreciation for the royal tradition into which he was born, while also providing our family with the space to focus on the next chapter, including the launch of our new charitable entity. We look forward to sharing the full details of this exciting next step in due course as we continue to collaborate with Her Majesty the Queen, the Prince of Wales, the Duke of Cambridge and all relevant parties. Until then, please accept our deepest thanks for your continued support. I mean, it's virtually a letter of resignation, isn't it? That's pretty much what it is. Look, we can't take the heat. We don't like it. We were feeling very miserable. We've had 6 great weeks out on Vancouver Island. We kind of like that. How you can spend half your time in North America and still continue to honour your duty to the Queen, the Commonwealth and all your patronages, I do not know. It is literally impossible to do so. As I say, I see this pretty much as a resignation. They're not going to be frontline royals in future. Quite where they're going to get the money from, I don't know. Maybe she'll go back to acting. I don't know. I really just don't know. But just the language that they use to carve out a progressive new role within this institution. Give me strength. Right, let's get back quickly. A couple of quick more comments on Donald Trump's speech about Iran and whether this really has calmed things down, at least for now. Ali is a new caller to the show from Sheffield. Good evening to you.
Hi, Nigel. You all right?
I'm all right. So, was Trump a statesman today?
Yeah, he was actually, yeah.
Was
very,
he?
very calm. But I'd like to just make 2 points, quick points as well.
Please do.
Having your opinion as well on this.
Sure.
You mentioned earlier on in your show 1979, hostages, etc., etc. Now, when Khomeini took over, things went downhill. And then Khamenei took over, nothing improved. Do people actually think that killing Soleimani is going to do anything to, like, soften Iran as a dangerous country? Because I personally don't think when one fanatic dies, there's always somebody else to take his place, and that's how it's been for the last 40 years. So I don't think it's going to lead to a world war. I really don't. But I think people should be
Okay. Well, the argument, Ali, there would be, yes, of course, I mean, he's already been replaced. The argument would be he was the guy that's been there for year after year after year. He was the brains, he was the architect, and if you remove the brains of the operation, you've taken a step forward.
I can see where you're coming from, but we thought that when Khomeini died, but we got another...
No, okay, listen, I'm not going to fight you on that. Fine, I get it. And your second point, Ali?
And the second point is, I think people have forgot a small country called Israel, which is really important in this the situation at the moment. I personally believe that if Iran had any kind of backing from any of the Arab nations, that this would have escalated a little bit more. But they had no backing from none of the Arab nations due to the fact that Israel would have been a target of Iran, regardless of what the Americans have done to Israel. Yeah. And I still think Israel will still be a target of Iran through their proxy attacks that they do.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got the same opinion as me, Nigel, but I really do.
No, I get the point. I get it, Ali. I get it. Thank you very much. I'm going to go now for more reaction to this news and what I see as effectively a retirement. Perhaps I've got this wrong. I don't know. I'm going to Margaret Holder, royal author and expert. Margaret, how do you interpret this statement this evening?
Well, I've only just come across it, but I think it's been boiling up for some time. The position of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex has been much discussed amongst members of the royal family, as far as we know, and of course the courtiers who manage the royal family, and in this case really have failed to manage them. I think Harry's position was always second born, second best, and that was so many years ago. I think Diana worried about it, but she isn't obviously here to help out. The position of Prince William was always number one. He was going to be king. Everything would be planned for him. And the position of the second in line has never really been thoroughly thought out. When you look at what's happened to Prince Andrew, he was the second in line many years ago, and his career was in the military, and once he came out, what happened? If you leave him at a loose end, they get into trouble, they get into mischief, or they just lack direction, which I think has happened with Prince Harry. Meghan has never really settled in the UK, and blaming the media for their own problems won't help them.
No, I mean,
what they've done.
That's why they look so miserable, didn't they? Margaret, thank you. I'm going to have to leave it there. I do think they brought a lot of this upon themselves, personally, I must say. Just to remind people, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex have said in a statement they intend to step back as senior members of the royal family and work to become financially independent. It is, they say, their attempt to carve out a progressive new role within the institution. Well, there you are. At 10 o'clock tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But now, it's Ian Dale.
That word progressive. It's like a red rag to a bull, isn't it,
the
Nigel?
language,
You being the bull.
this woke statement they put out. I mean, it's just, oh dear.
Well, we have ripped up our running order tonight because of this breaking news over the last half an hour. It'll dominate the first part of the news hour. We may well even want to get your views on this announcement from the royal family or from Prince Harry and the Duchess of Sussex at 9 o'clock. But before that, cross question at 8. We're going to be joined by the former Conservative International Development Secretary Andrew Mitchell, Labour peer Lord Glassman, Brexiteer actually, and also Salma Shah, former Conservative advisor to Sajid Javid, and also Harry Lambert from the New Statesman. So the lines are open